Hey guys, welcome to TechWeb. This video we're going to be speaking about best practices for user story and acceptance criteria with examples for product managers. Start by user story. A user story is effectively a problem that a customer or an end user is trying to solve. It is not a product requirement document, rather a simplistic or a summary of a product requirement that you give to tech team in order for them to start building the feature, product or a subtask. A typical syntax or a format of user story looks like this, where you define who the user is. So as a user, I want to take certain action which will result or so that I can solve this problem. Now this is one part of the user story or the requirement. The second part of the requirement is the acceptance criteria. Now acceptance criteria is the bare minimum requirement that you would want to fulfill in a product in order to make it usable. So if you're building an e-commerce product, the acceptance criteria might be that you want customers to be able to add items to their cart. If I look at the format of an acceptance criteria, it would be given, which is the anticipated action. When I perform this action, then I should be able to get this outcome. So if I were to look at the bare bone definition of both of these, a user story is a problem, while the acceptance criteria is bare minimum requirement that the product should have in order to solve the problem. So let's take two examples. The first example will be of a product manager. So as a product manager, I want to create an Excel document so that I can track all my features. Now this is the problem, and by doing this action, I'll solve this problem. Given the Excel document, when I add multiple rows, then enables me to track and better visualize my features. So in order to solve this problem, this is the bare minimum my Excel document should be able to deliver or should be able to do. The acceptance criteria more for a tech team know what are the bare minimum set of features to build in order to solve this problem. Let's take another example of an e-commerce product. As an e-commerce shopper, I want to be able to add things to my cart so that I can check all the items the end at once. Now, given the cart and added multiple items is able to hold up, meaning the app is not crashing when I'm adding multiple items to the cart. So this is the bare minimum criteria. Another acceptance criteria could also be that I can add more than one item or more than X number of items. So the goal here is to either talk about the performance or MVP or the bare minimum set of features that the user story should be able to perform. Now let's talk about 5 best practices that I personally like to follow when talking about user story and acceptance criteria or product requirement in general. Number 1, it should solve one problem at a time. So if you talk about delivering items to the customer and adding items to the cart, these are effectively leading to solving the same problem, but these are two separate problems that you'd want to solve. Don't use user stories as PRD. A PRD is a much more detailed document which talks about who the users are and what's the next phase for this specific product or a feature, etc., etc. So ensure that user stories are not used as a product requirement document. If you'd want to learn how to write PRDs, check out the link in the description. Then building personas prior to writing PRD, really important, because user story is focused on solving a user problem, and you cannot solve a user problem if you don't know who your customers are. Number 4, do your research about personas prior to writing these user stories. So if you don't know what the problems of your personas are, you'll keep solving wrong set of problems. So it's important to do that research before you kind of write user stories per se. And then break tasks into subtasks, divide stories as such that they can be completed in one sprint. Don't build big user stories or don't attempt to solve bigger problems using the user story approach. The idea is that you should break it down in tasks and then break it further down in subtasks, sequentially arrange which problems you want to solve first. Now, benefits of using a user story is that it's easy to understand across all departments. So if you look at a typical tech document, it's very hard for a sales guy or growth person to kind of understand we are trying to solve with this. User story is simple for everyone. So CXOs, non-tech teams can understand the problem that we are trying to solve. Then break features down into problems. So if you look at building a feature, right? So I want to add a login form. That's a feature. I want to enable my customers to use my platform much more securely. That's an attempt to solve the problem. Breaks features down into problems that can be picked up faster. Third, it allows your team and yourself to focus on real customer problems, then focusing on building features. These are the 3 major benefits of using user stories as an approach to kind of prioritize your item. Now, how do you write a great user story? First, break customer problems down into tasks and subtasks. Now you figure out what your personas are and what their problems are and which ones you'd want to solve for them today, and create stories in a logical manner. So once you break all of these tasks down, ensure that you logically arrange each of these stories with respect to their priorities, and validate your user stories by speaking to customers, and then finally build stories that you can complete in a This is how I would recommend you write a user story. These are like bare minimum set of best practices or approaches to write a user story. Obviously, depending on your product, you may have a different approach, and I encourage you to be flexible with respect to this because it's just fundamentals. but it might change with respect to your product per se. And this is probably going to be it. I hope this video was helpful. If yes, consider subscribing to the channel and dropping a like on this video, and I'll see you in the next one.